like kind of a weird angle today because I refuse to set up lights. It's just not the vibe. The vibe is not setting up lights. I am going to share my November reading wrap up. So these are all the books I read in the month of November. I read 10 books in November, which is not the 25 I needed to read in November, but it is something. And it's better than I have been doing, so I can't complain too much. We had some hits and we had some misses this month. Like, we really ran the spectrum. I don't think I had a 5-star. No, I had a 4.5 star, but I didn't have any 5 stars. And I had a 1 star this month. 1 star. Gross. Disgusting. So let's go through them. Let's talk about the hits. Let's talk about the misses. Let's talk about it all. The first book I read this month was the final book in the Bonds That Tie series by Bree. I have talked about this before, I think in my August reading wrap-up where I read the other 5. This series revolves around this world in which you have like soulmates that are called your bonds. And most of the time you have more than one. So there's like a central bond and then all of her soulmates are like surround her. And I guess the central bond can be a guy too, I think. But ours is a girl. Her name is Oleander. And Oleander has 5 bonds. She's been running from her whole life because she has too good of powers. Okay? Oh yeah, your powers get amplified once you get a bond. There's like a lot going on. It's kind of confusing. This was the last book in the series. I didn't find it a super satisfying conclusion, I hate to say. But like, this series in general was like kind of a little messy. But it was really fun. And I'm sad that it's over, but like, the ride was a good one. I had a good time on the ride. Next up, I was continuing on my hunt for the next great vampire book of my heart. I read Black Sunshine by Karina Halle. I'm not sure how to say her last name. It's a Kindle Unlimited vampire romance. It's about this college student who is about to turn 21, I believe. And this guy is following her and she's like suspicious. And then she winds up getting like kidnapped at a party by vampires, obviously. And it turns out she's like connected to the vampires and like there's witches and there's vampires and there's like this whole intricate world building in which the witches and vampires like hate each other and are like trying to kill each other and like she's a vampire. Is that a spoiler? I don't know. But her parents are witches and like what happens? I really didn't like this book. I found it incredibly boring. And if you know anything about me, I think the cardinal sin of a KU book is if I find it boring. Like, I will suspend all disbelief. I'm here for a wild ride. The Broken Bond series, the world building, sketchy. The character motivations, a little weird. The writing, not always the best. I still loved it. Still had a great time. I'm not here to be a critic when I'm in Kindle Unlimited. I'm just here for a good time. And this was boring. I was bored. I like skimmed the last 10% because I just wanted to be through it. And at this point in the year, like, I can't just DNF things because I don't count DNFs towards my reading goal. And so I like essentially DNF'd this one at the like 85% mark, but I did like skim quickly at the end. So I felt like I read it so I could count it. I just didn't like it. Things went up from there. Next I read They Drowned Our Daughters by Katrina Monroe. This is like a spooky ocean book. It is about this family in which the daughters are like cursed. We think there's like this family curse. Is there a ghostie that lives in the ocean? It is very atmospheric, very gothic, very creepy. It takes place in like Cape Cod, Nantucket. Martha's Vineyard. Those 3 places to me are the same place. I grew up in California, now I live in Colorado. I don't know what happens on the East Coast. I don't know what happens over there. It's not my business. But it's really atmospheric, really like a slow, like spooky creeping sort of horror, but I really enjoyed it. It was a good time. And then I read another horror. This one, also gothic, but like much scarier. Like one of the scary books I've read this year, and it was The Hacienda by Isabel Canas. This is about a woman. It takes place in, I think, like early 1800s, but I could be mistaken, in Mexico. It's about this young woman. She's recently married this guy, and she's going to stay at his house. He is like a hacienda. I don't know a ton about the politics of Mexico at this time, but from my understanding, the hacienda owner is like the rich guy that kind of owns like a large portion of like the town, and then, you know, all of the people in the town kind of work for him. It's my sort of understanding. And so she's married him because she kind of grew up rich, but she'd like her family during the political revolution fell out of money. They do not have money anymore. And so she married him because she liked him sort of, but mostly because she wanted money again. And his house is like really, really spooky. He had a first wife who died under mysterious circumstances, giving very much like Rebecca vibes. And so she's trying to kind of like figure out what happened there, but the house is very haunted. The house is very haunted. It is very spooky. There's also like a priest romance situation. So if that was something from Fleabag that you found enjoyable, here it is again. Really good though. Like, I think one of the scariest books I've read this year. Like, the house is haunted. It's haunted. And yeah. Also interesting conversations around like class dynamics and things like that. A good time. Also, Isabel Canas, I just saw on her Instagram that her next book is coming out next year. And it's a vampire book. I'm so excited. As you know, as we just spoke about, I'm on the hunt for my next great vampire book. And Isabel Canas heard me. And she's coming to deliver. Then I read, oh my god, I love this book, guys. This is Daughter of No Worlds by Carissa. Broadbent. I'm reading this for a video that should be coming before the end of days, maybe. Maybe not. It is a book about this girl who's in slavery, and she's trying to buy her way out. She has like magic powers where she can make butterflies. We don't know a lot at the beginning, but we know she's trying to buy her way out of slavery because her people, like her region, all the people in her region were sold into slavery when she was a young child. And so now I think she's like in her early 20s, is trying to buy her way out of slavery. She's been like saving for years and years, trying to buy her way out of slavery so she can go to this nation that is notorious for like training up warriors, and she can train to be a warrior and like build an army to come and like free her people. It's giving Throne of Glass. Ugh. I like do not say that lightly. Look in my eyes. I do not tell you things are like Throne of Glass lightly, but this gave me like Throne of Glass vibes, like loosely. Like, it's not a mirror image in any way. I don't think we have kind of like that wide cast of characters, at least not yet. I've only read the first book. But we do have this, I feel like the main character, whose name I like cannot remember, she gives me a little bit of Selena vibes. Like a little bit. Just a sprinkle. I really enjoyed it. I'm so excited to read the other two. I'm hoping to read them in December. Then I read Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. This has been on my to-read list for actual years. And it is the story of, if you're not familiar, I feel like everyone and their mom has read Six of Crows. It is the story of these 6 people who are trying to break into this like notorious prison, this ICE prison, and break out a prisoner so they can make a bunch of money. And like some of them are criminals and some of them are kind of being like blackmailed into this situation. They all have their own unique skills that are like coming together. It's like a classic heist book. But like what really sells it is this cast of characters. And let me tell you, I am a Nina and Matthias super fan. Nina and Matthias. I actually have a video, I think, hopefully. I've recorded some clips for it. Will I put it together? Who knows? Not me. Of me reading Six of Crows, like a spoilery vlog. So I'm still working on Crooked Kingdom, but hopefully once I get Crooked Kingdom pulled together, you'll get to see some of my thoughts as I was reading. But like, let me just give you the long and short of it, and that is that I'm obsessed with Nina and Matthias. I was like on the fence. I had actually have tried to read this book 2 other times and have DNF'd it both times because I just like had a hard time. There was like a lot of characters. I was having a hard time like keeping up and getting emotionally invested. This time, as soon as I hit that Nina and Matthias chapter where Matthias is talking about how he like dreams about Nina, and like sometimes those dreams he's kissing her and sometimes he's killing her, and the dream is I was like sold. I wept in this book. And you know why? I cried over Nina and Matthias. I know everyone's about Inez and Kaz. And like, Inez is a queen. But like, I'm a Nina and Matthias girl till I die. Ride or die for Nina and Matthias. So good. Anyway, I'm like 75% of the way through Crooked Kingdom. Should be finishing that up in the next few days. Actually, you know, honestly, like, should be finishing up today if I like have any hopes of hitting my reading goal. Next, I read Below Zero, one of the STEMinist novellas by Hazelwood. This is the final one in the STEMinist novella series. I have read the whole series. I like absolutely loved this series. I like want more romance novellas because I feel like that's what the magic of this was they're just so short. Like, I read each of them like in one single sitting. They're like hour and a half long reads for me, and they're just like so delightful. This one is the most ridiculous, but it's the best one. It's the best one. The like conclusion is like outlandish. outlandish. What a delight. What a delight. It is about these two people. They met years ago when the girl was still, like, in grad school. She, like, interviewed him, and they have, like, major chemistry. Like, they made out a little bit, you know? But they don't see each other, and then years later, she's now working at NASA under him. They're, like, I don't think they're in the same team, but, like, he's working at NASA, and she's also working at NASA, and he's, like, a supervisor in a different department, I think is the deal. And there's, like, tensions, and there's been some, like, miscommunication, maybe, or maybe, like, he kind of hates her now, because, like, they ended things on a weird note, and it's just, like, delicious. It's so good. I enjoyed this one so much. I, like, hope Hazelwood comes out with more of these novellas, because I love her novellas. I thought Love Hypothesis was, like, fine. No problems with it, but, like, wasn't one of my favorite. But these novellas are just, like, a treat. I will be reading Love on the Brain at some point as well. I'm sure. Can't get away from it. But I want more novellas from her. I want more novellas. Then I read some nonfiction, because I'm an academic girly. I read Cultish by Amanda Montell. This book was everywhere, I think, last year. I found it okay, but I think I found it okay just because it's, like, a very introductory book in the world of cults. I studied religion in college, and one of the classes I had to take was a class on, like, what is a religion, and we talked a lot about cults and, like, is there really a distinction between a religion and a cult? Like, how can we define that? Blah, 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 blah. And so, like, a lot of the information here, like, she talked extensively about Jonestown. I studied Jonestown extensively, had to write papers on Jonestown, was stuff that I, like, already knew. So there wasn't a lot of new material introduced, just because it is an area that I've already been exposed to quite a bit. But if you don't have that background, I think that's, like, 100% a me problem. I think it was a really accessible and interesting look into cults, and particularly the linguistics, the language around cults, and how language is such an important vehicle for creating a cult. I also really enjoyed the stuff where she talked about how this, like, cultish sort of language is used in, like, non-religious settings, like, traditional cult settings. Like, she talked a lot about, like, the health and fitness industry, and, like, how there's, like, cultish sort of communities and groups built upon language in that environment as well. It was interesting. It was good. It just, like, wasn't for me, because a lot of it was new, but I would, like, recommend it, like, very highly. Then next, I read some poetry. I've been working on this poetry collection for a couple months now. I think I might have been working on it since July. I feel like it was in my 30 books in 30 day video. And that is Blue Horses by Mary Oliver. I love Mary Oliver. She's my favorite poet. I love to pick up a poetry collection and then just, like, slowly read a couple poems here and there when I'm, like, feeling in the mood. But I finally finished it up this month. Mary Oliver is brilliant. Like, she can do no wrong. They were great. And then the final book I read this month was Hook, Line, and Sinker by Tessa Bailey. This is her follow-up to It Happened One Summer. So we're in that same, if you read It Happened One Summer, we're in a small town in Washington that's, like, a fishing community, where most of the men are crab fishermen, and the Bellinger sisters. So in the first book we followed Piper, and now we're following Hannah, the younger sister. Hannah is, like, the more practical of the two sisters, and she actually is... This book takes place, like, 6 months after the first book, and she has moved back to LA. They grew up in LA. Hannah and Piper both grew up in LA. Hannah's back in LA doing, like, music producing stuff down there. But her movie that she's, like, doing music stuff with winds up shooting up in the small town in Washington. And so she is back with her sister, and then she is also spending time with Brendan, Brendan is her sister's boyfriend. Fox. She's spending time with Fox. She winds up having to stay with Fox because her sister doesn't have room at her house. Whatever. And her and Fox have been friends since the last book, and so now we have, like, a friends to lovers sort of romance. For me, this one felt a little bit flat. I wasn't head over heels in love with the other one either. But this one just, like, felt a little flat. The, like, major conflict here is, like, Fox sees himself and is seen by the community as, like, a ladies' man who, like, is just, like, here for, like, a good time, not a long time. And he doesn't want to, like, impose that reputation upon Hannah. And he also doesn't know if he, like, can commit to a relationship. But, like, Hannah's the kind of girl you want to, like, wife up. It's actually said at one point. And I just, like, that's, like, a fine conflict, I guess. But, like, it was just repeated over and over again. Like, I felt like a good portion of the story was just, like, us doing the same thing over and over and over again. And I just didn't love it. I don't know. I didn't find it super compelling. Okay, this is spoiler. So that's my last book. So if you don't want spoilers for this book, you can go now. I'll see you next time. But I need to talk about a spoiler really quick. Get it off my chest. So big spoiler for this book. So at the end of this book, Hannah quits her job as a production assistant and like music producer person on this movie to move up to Seattle, which is like close-ish to this town of Westport, to be closer to Fox. They've been dating for 10 seconds. And Fox decides he's can captain boats because he also doesn't believe he can take on leadership. Fox had never wanted to do boats. They talk about how like he had a startup for a while and like he like really wasn't that interested in boats, but now then he couldn't feel like he did it. I was so confused why the F didn't Fox quit his job on the fishing boat and move to LA to be with Hannah so Hannah could pursue her dreams. Like, it seemed, like, Hannah is still staying, like, in the music industry, and it's, like, kind of, like, painted as, like, oh, it's working out better for her because she can, like, do music production up here. But, like, that doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry. Like, there's no reason Fox was like, yeah, I am going to take on this leadership position on a boat. Like, why? Why didn't he say, you know what? I'm going to quit what I'm doing up here and show my commitment to you by moving to be closer with you, to you down in LA. It didn't make any sense to me. I needed him to quit his job. I understand that she wanted, like, that cute little epilogue where they're all together. And, like, that was adorable. It was, like, a little Christmas epilogue, and I loved it. But, no. Just wasn't it for me. Anyway, so that is what I read in the month of November. Like I've mentioned before, the month of December, in order to hit my reading goal, I need to read 35 books. That is more than a book a day. Are we going to do it? I'm not giving up hope yet. I am not giving up hope yet. We're going to try our very, very darndest. So anyway, hopefully I come to you next month with just like stacks and stacks and stacks of books. But until then, well, hopefully also I make some videos in the meantime. I'm currently working on drafting my second novel that is coming out in 2024 probably. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. So we'll see. We'll see if we have time. I wish there were more hours than today. Honestly, I wish I like used my time more effectively. That would probably be more helpful than wishing for more hours in a day. One of those is more doable than the other. Anyway, I will talk to you next time. Have a good one. Bye.